As I began writing my speech a few weeks ago, I started off by thinking about the topic that was given. That topic was, God is a light, or the light of God. As I pondered this topic, I couldn't help but laugh because I realized, what did this mean to me? Sadly, not much. Growing up in a Christian family, I'd heard this phrase many times. It now seemed, after hearing it so many times, to just go in one ear and out the other. I feel now, after writing the speech and studying a little, I feel I know what that phrase means. The light of God, that God is a light. I feel I know what effect He has in a Christian's life, such as myself. And I hope by the time I get done with this speech, that you too will understand what it means and how it can affect your life. Continuing on, I was a little bored and dry for ideas, so I walked into the living room, scanning my dad's bookshelves, and I noticed a book that looked a little familiar. So I pulled it out and I looked at it. It was called Jesus Freaks. This book was familiar to me. I'd read it a few months ago. This was a book about martyrs. Martyrs, people who had died for their faith. And no, not martyrs of the ancient Roman time, not martyrs that you found in history books, but martyrs of modern day time. Martyrs from within the last 100 years or so. This intrigued me so much. The fact that even in today's civilized, democratic world, there were still people being killed for their faith. Still people who were hated because of what they believed. I opened the book, and I remembered how I'd read it, and what the effect that it had on me, how much it had changed me. Sadly, I knew that I was not the same person that had been changed. I was back to the beginning. I flipped through the stories, and I came to one that I remembered reading. I began reading again. It was a story about a man named Pastor Kim and his congregation in North Korea in the 1950s. Pastor Kim and his congregation had to live in secret to hide from the communist government. They dug tunnels and lived secretly underneath the ground for years. Well, one day as the communist government was building a road, they came upon Pastor Kim and his congregation underground. They seized them, they grabbed them, they bound up the whole congregation and took them to an arena, which quickly filled up to around 30,000 people to spectate their public trial and execution. As they were in the middle of this arena, Pastor Kim and his congregation stood waiting. Finally, a North Korean officer walked up and said, "Deny your faith, or you will die." Pastor Kim and his congregation did not say a word. Hesitating a little, the officer stepped forward again, grabbed four of their young children, brought them over, and prepared them for hanging. He said to the parents of the children, "Deny your faith, your belief in Christ, or they will die." The parents said nothing to the officer, but looked at the children and said, "We will meet you in heaven." The children died quietly. The North Korean officer then, once again outraged, looked at the group and said, "Deny Christ or you will all die." They did not say a word. He ordered a steamroller to be brought into the arena. He ordered them all to lay on the ground and said one more final time, "Deny Christ or we will kill you." Pastor Kim and his congregation were silent once again. The steamroller's engine revved. It began to inch slowly forward. And at this point, Pastor Kim and his congregation were no longer silent. They began singing praises to God that they'd sung together so many times before. They sang out loud, and they died singing those praises. The next day in a local Korean newspaper, it was reported that the deaths were an act of suppressing superstition. I came back to myself and looked at the story, and I realized how strong they were. I realized how much pain surrounded them. All the cloudiness, the mystery, the darkness, all the pain, the hurt, the torture, the death that they saw of their children, that was around them, yet they still saw God. They still saw that one ray of light coming down, and they held onto it so strongly, knowing that just above those clouds, that hurt and that pain, was a place where there was no more pain. There was light and nothing but light. And that was God, a place with God. They knew that God's light was constant, that His love and His strength was constant, just as the sun's light is constant on the earth. At this point, I realized how weak I was as a Christian myself. And I wanted everyone in the world to know that each Christian goes through pain. You all will go through pain in your life. But it doesn't have to be that way. You do not have to dwell in that. God's light will always be there to help you. All you must do is hold strong to it. And I encourage you to please do that. I know that now. Again,